so much. A great bit of reporting. This isn't the only major headline on Russia. This is from the New York Times this morning. The headline says top Russian officials discussed how to influence Trump aides last summer. Sources tell the Times that American spies learned that senior Russian intelligence and political officials discussed how to influence former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and top foreign policy advisor Michael Flynn. The New York Times says Russian officials appeared confident that Flynn and Manafort could be used to help shape Trump's opinions on Russia. Our next guest is uniquely qualified to talk about all of this, what we're seeing live at NATO headquarters, as well as this new reporting. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Alexander Vershbow, who also served as NATO's Deputy Secretary General. Mr. Ambassador, good to see you. Let me start with this new reporting that's out there from the Washington Post and the New York Times about Russia allegedly trying to influence what was going on here. What do you make of it?
Well, it fits in with a lot of the other rumors and hearsay that underscores the need for a thorough investigation. Whether this is true or whether it's a significant piece of evidence, I don't know. But it also, I think, looking at the NATO...
But if it was true, would any of it surprise you?
No. I mean, I think the Russians do like to influence developments in our country. This isn't a brand new thing, but they took it to a new level in terms of their interference in the 2016 elections. But I wouldn't be surprised if they thought that they could generate some influence through building up relationships with Mr. Flynn and others.
I want to ask you now to put on your hat as a former NATO Deputy Secretary General. What does Donald Trump need to do? What does he need to say to allies? Obviously, there were a whole load of concerns before about some of his statements about NATO in general and, you know, his push to get more money from some of these countries. But now you have Theresa May saying in absolutely stark terms, this is not okay. You guys cannot be leaking intelligence. You hear it from their Homeland Secretary. We heard it from police officials. What can he do here to allay some of these concerns among our allies?
Yeah. Well, first of all, allies have a lot of concerns about exactly where President Trump stands on NATO and on his relationship with Europe. Does he still value NATO as a kind of linchpin of U.S. security? And is he going to make unequivocally clear that he has allies back, that the famous Article 5 commitment to come to the defense of any ally is something that he stands by without any conditions? And I think the meeting is an opportunity for mutual reassurance. He can reassure them on that, and allies can assure him that they take seriously his demand that they shoulder their share of the responsibility for the common defense. And I think on those issues, you're likely to see a positive outcome. But the Theresa May comments underscore that there's a lot of lingering doubts about the president's approach to allies and to Russia. The same applies to the reports coming out of the meeting with Lavrov in the White House 2 weeks ago. They're wondering whether his failure to criticize Vladimir Putin about anything reflects a much more soft line towards Russia, or whether he's going to stick with the allies and demand that Russia change its behavior, in particular get out of eastern Ukraine before there'll be any reset in relations. So there's a lot riding on this meeting beyond defense spending, beyond fighting terrorism. It's a basic trust in President Trump's approach to the most vital alliance the United States has.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this joint appearance. We're going to see it very shortly from President Trump, Chancellor Merkel. I mentioned earlier in the show that chilly meeting that they had in the Oval Office. Even a handshake wasn't exchanged. It looked decidedly more chilly than the meeting he had with the Russians, for sure. What are you expecting here, and what's going to be at the top of Angela Merkel's list to talk to the president about?
I think Angela Merkel, on the one hand, is part of the European side of the alliance that has to reassure President Trump that they've heard his complaints about defense spending. And he's not the first president to say the Europeans haven't been carrying their responsibility. So I think she, being the biggest European ally, can make a big difference in saying that she's going to move to reach the 2% of GDP goal as promised by 2024. But at the same time, I think she will lead the chorus in seeking assurances from President Trump that he stands by Article 5, that he has a principled approach to Russia, despite his lack of criticism of Vladimir Putin, and that he sort of sees Europe as a strong partner rather than as a problem in dealing with global problems.
Ambassador Vershbow, good to see you, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Susan and Joel are going to stay with me and standing by with me for remarks from the president and German leader Angela Merkel. Both have arrived now at NATO headquarters. We'll be back with much more in a moment.
You're a powerful man, and that is not an easy thing to work with.
I think you're going to be surprised. My offer is $650,000 for 25% of the business. Do we have a deal?
We have a deal.